Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. Today's video is talking about the fact that I'm being taken to court. Well, at least Barrow Motors Limited is being taken to court by a disgruntled customer who bought a car from us in 2021 and was basically unhappy. It's not a black and white case, so I thought I'm going to read the details through with you before I go to court next month and get your opinion on how you feel you would feel as either me, the seller, or the buyer in this scenario. I feel like we've offered absolutely everything we can, and I always try to offer absolutely everything we can. I by no means try and get away without repairing a vehicle that I should do, but I do feel like, at some point you have to draw a line. We are running a business here. I can't be responsible for maintaining someone's car forever. Just because you bought a car from us secondhand doesn't mean that we're responsible for it continuing to be in good quality and good condition. That's going to be down to you as the owner, maintaining, taking care of your vehicle, etc. So, it could be a long one. Let's start at the beginning. So, back in the middle of October 2021, we had some customers come to us from a fair old distance away to view a 2007 Audi Q7 on 146,000 miles. Now, don't get me wrong, this is something I probably really shouldn't have had in stock. I can't even remember how it came into stock, whether I took it as part exchange or I just had a funny 5 minutes when I was bidding on auctions and I bought it. Either way, it's not really the sort of thing I want to have in stock. Perhaps I was still in a bit of a learning phase then, or perhaps I just thought it looked particularly good value. Either way, we had this car in stock and it was advertised for sale. There were a couple of little things that we wanted to get sorted with it, but the customer wasn't too bothered about those. One, it had a door hinge on the front that was just a bit knackered, really, and it made a bit of a clonking noise and made the door a bit awkward to open. It was a bit sort of clunky, so we wanted to get a new door hinge for it, and despite the air suspension working perfectly fine, it did have an air suspension light that would sporadically come on, which didn't really affect the operation of the car whatsoever. It did all of its functions, it went to all of its different heights, it kept height, all that sort of stuff, it wasn't losing air, but it did have this air suspension warning light on. So we wanted to delve into that, find out if it was a sensor or what it was, and we would get that sorted before they came to collect the car. So customers were happy with that. They left us a £200 deposit. They went away on the understanding that we would get in touch with them once the car was ready. So roll around to November. The car still wasn't ready. I think the door hinge hadn't turned up. A, we'd struggled to find one, and B, we had to order one from Lithuania or something, a second-hand one. And it was taking an age to turn up. I guess this was 2021. I don't know how bad postage was then, but either way, it hadn't turned up, and we were struggling to figure out what was going on with this air suspension fault. I think by that point we had changed a distribution block, which is in the side skirt. Something that told us that would be the case. And I think we changed a pressure sensor as well, which seemed to sort of rectify it temporarily, but not completely. But either way, in November of 2021, the customers turned up to collect the car, unannounced, and sort of insisted on taking it, despite there being faults. And they said, well, we're up and down here because we've got family. We'll come back in the next month or so, and we'll get those things sorted. We're not too fussed. The door works fine. The air suspension works fine. We're not too worried about a light. They really wanted to take it, which is not something we normally like to do. But, on this occasion, we felt a bit awkward. It had been a while since they'd left a deposit, so we let them take the car. We did a PDI. We checked everything else over. Everything else was fine. Made a note of the air suspension light and the door hinge that they were coming back for. And that was that. I think we left it that we would see them, in a month or so. The parts would be here. If they could give us a heads up, then we'd book them in and get it done. Just to kind of make a point, I suppose, the car itself was, 2007 Audi Q7. It was an S-Line. So this was a 15-year-old car. It was on 146 plus thousand miles. It had been MOT'd 4 days before they turned up to pick up the car unannounced, and it passed with no advisories whatsoever. So either the air suspension light wasn't on at that point, or it's not an MOT failure, I don't really know. And we sold it to the customers for £6,495. So just for context, obviously, it would have been, a 45, £50,000 car. So it's a fraction of what it was, super high mileage. It was very cheap for that car at that time. And yeah, it's an old, luxury car that maybe affordable to buy, but they're not always affordable to run. So we didn't see the car again until February of 2022, when they dropped it back to us. We changed the door hinge. What we ended up having to do, we did have the car for a couple of weeks, if not 3 weeks, because I think we ended up trying about 3 different air pumps. It was really hard narrowing down exactly which one to get. We tried TPS, we tried, I guess we tried Audi, but I imagine we ended up with TPS. Tried all the usual part suppliers that we use. And in the end, I think we had to turn to eBay, basically, to get the only model that had the same connections, etc., that we needed for the car, that the car already had. So we changed that. No air suspension light, everything working perfectly, door working well. I think there had been one parking sensor in the meantime that had failed to work and was causing an issue on the bumper, or they'd figured out one wasn't. So as a gesture of goodwill, we also fitted a whole new set of parking sensors for them, completely repaired that. And because we'd had it for a couple of weeks, I sort of said, let me know what you drink, thinking it might be red or white wine. It was gin, so I spent the money out on some gin and I think some flowers or chocolates, I can't remember. Put it in there as a sort of goodwill gesture, thank you for your patience. And off the car went. So that was February, and we never heard anything again until June. So 3 months and about 4,000 miles later, this time apparently the air suspension had lowered itself and wouldn't go back up. So different to what we had before. Perhaps the pump had failed. And of course, we're apologetic. Sorry to hear that. This is 7 months after they bought the car at this point. 3 months after we'd repaired it and everything had been fine. The customer is quite sort of argumentative and aggressive, saying that we never repaired the car. They've been driving it for 3 months and 4,000 miles or whatever, so clearly we had repaired the car. And yeah, they wanted us to repair it. I said, understandably, no problem. If you bring it back to us, I'm happy to work with you. We'll take a look at it, find out what it is. If it's a pump again, we'll sort that out. But, you have to get the car to us, really. We're not coming to what is equivalent about four hours away to collect this big vehicle. I didn't have any way of transporting at that point without spending money on a transportation company. But they didn't want to do that. They said, well, we'll have a warranty with the pump from, you get 12 months warranty with any electrical item or anything you buy. And I said, well, you would if you were the person who bought it. You're not, we are. But I am happy to, if you want to get a diagnosis done, find out it is the pump, I will speak to the part supplier on your behalf and try and get them to, send a replacement. I think it's unlikely they'll cover any labour costs, but I am more than happy to try on your behalf. Turns out they didn't want to do that. They wanted the contact details for the part supplier, which I gave them, which was some Chinese company, which clearly they were going to get nowhere with, really. So the customer then went away, as far as I was aware, to go and get some diagnostic work done on the car and figure out exactly what was going wrong. It wasn't for 2 or 3 weeks then when I heard back, and the customer was saying, just to confirm that I am to go and get 3 quotes and you will pay the cheapest, meaning that I, or Barrow Motors Limited, would pay the cheapest quote to repair it. To which I said, that's not what I discussed. I said, I will speak to the part supplier for you, but we're well out of any warranty period at this point. We're well out of the Consumer Rights Act period. I'm happy to work with you if you can get it to me, but I'm not going to pay someone else to repair it. It's just too expensive. There wasn't that much money in the car in the first place, and we spent a lot on repairing it up to this point. You've done a lot of miles and it's been a lot of time. I can't carry on forever being responsible for this just because you spent £6,500 on the car with us. The customer then came back to me after, I think, deciding that they weren't going to get anywhere with the part supplier, to say that they'd been in contact with Trading Standards and Citizens Advice and they would now be contacting me solely via letter, to which I said, that's absolutely fine. I understand and I will wait to hear. What followed was, half a dozen letters going back and forth, explaining, trying to teach me the Consumer Rights Act and how we hadn't repaired the car, etc. All of which I was trying to be as helpful as possible and say, we did repair the car. Clearly, you were driving it for an awful long time and you didn't speak to us. You didn't bring the car back to us for a few months after you bought it when you meant to be coming straight back to fix it. And, I'm more than happy to help out, but I don't want to spend, £500 on getting it back to us to then fix something else. Yeah, I'm willing to work with you, but I'm not willing to do it solely on your terms, which at this point, They were asking for £3,000 for a repair. They want £3,000 refunded from a £6,500 car that was 15 years old and on basically 150,000 miles. To which I said, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's reasonable. I think you can get an air suspension pump, if that's what it is, for say £250. But it may be, an air suspension bag on the back has gone, which I'm not going to be responsible for. Of course, we want to help out everyone where we can, but I can't be responsible forever. This is the difficulty of being a car trader. I think I'm too much of a pushover on the whole, and I just tend to want to fix everything for everyone. But I think after you've been stung and people, take it a bit too far enough times, you realise that, you can't do that forever. If you go and buy a pair of trainers, you don't, phone up Nike 12 months down the line and say, look, these are worn out. I think you ought to give me a new pair, or at least give me half the money back, because I expected them to last longer. Yes, I've been wearing them every day in and out, but, that's just not fair, really, is it? So fast forward to today, and we have a court summons for next month, which will be March 2023, which will be done via telephone, which will be interesting. I've actually never been to court for anything, so it probably, without no bravado here whatsoever, it would have been a bit nerve-wracking for me, I think, to go and defend myself and feel like I'm in the right and I want to stand my ground. It's very easy to back down and say, yeah, I don't want to upset anyone. I don't want anyone to be upset with the company. My reputation is important to me. But on the other hand, my morals are important to me as well. And I don't think someone should just tell me that I need to give them, X amount of money because something's gone wrong with their car that's 15 years old, etc., etc. So, yeah, we'll be going to court. They are claiming for £6,995, which is the full purchase price of the car, plus £500 in fees. Somewhere along this process, I have taken the decision to sign up with Logistics, who are a solicitors firm who specialise in automotive industry, and they kind of know all the ins and outs of the law, exactly what the consumer is entitled to and exactly what they're not. They have a not 24-hour, but 7-day-a-week hotline. You can call them and say, I've got a customer saying this, X, Y, or Z, and they will give you the legal standpoint, give you advice, etc. They'll also, prepare court documents, and they will represent you in court for an extra fee, I believe. But on top of that, you can get PDI forms, you can get sales invoices, templates for all these things. So actually, for what it costs, which I think is about £800 a year, they're very helpful people to use, and we actually use them for our warranties. So rather than paying a warranty company, a couple of £100 to offer a warranty that probably doesn't cover the customer for what they need in the end, we use Logistics. We set out the rules for what's covered, and on top of what is legally obligated of us, and they administer it basically. So your customer, if they have an issue with their car, will call Logistics. They can approve or say it's not available, or they get in contact with us. Either way, if you need a repair, Logistics will contact us, say we've got a customer, this repair needs to be done, and they want to take it to this garage. Are you happy to pay for that? And if everything's checked out, then that's exactly what we do. So I find them very helpful. So you are in the motor trade, Logistics, I think they are worth checking out. I think for us it was about £800 a year, maybe £700. But I think they probably are cheaper and more expensive options. So I will go and check them out for sure. And they actually produced a very in-depth kind of court response for me, which again, it's interesting. It obviously shows their worth because they brought up things that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of. I mean, the first one that came up was something that I did think of. This was a situation where the customers had used money from their mother in order to buy the car. Therefore, they wanted the invoice made out to the mother's name. When they made a court case or court claim against us, it wasn't in the mother's name, it was in their own name. And technically, they're not the customer, so they didn't really have a right to make a claim. But I think the court probably will go through with it regardless. But, our lawyers at Logistics are saying that, it probably should be just thrown out on that grounds because they haven't really, got any place to make a claim whatsoever. And it kind of sets out all the details of everything that's happened, the dates of when it happened, the fact that it was MOT'd before, it was PDI'd, they've got all the paperwork from that, we kept all the records, of course. The fact that clearly the repair was made and it fixed it and they carried on for another 3 months from there. it's interesting to see actually that if you check out the MOT history, which of course you won't be able to do because I won't give you the reg, but I have looked at it and I can see that it is still being used and was MOT'd in December last year, so only a couple of months ago, and passed with just a couple of advisories which were brake pads wearing thin. You know, unsurprising, they've done 7,000 plus miles. So next month I go to court via telephone, and of course I will keep you updated on how it goes. I can't say I'm hugely optimistic. I don't think that judges tend to favour traders and businesses over private individuals. I think regardless of whether, you know, we're on the right side of the law here, they are likely to side in favour with the customer. I hope that's not the case. I don't want to be a pessimist. I'd like to be a realist, but I think you tend to hear more negative cases as far as it goes for dealers than you do positive. Fingers crossed. But, you know, even at this point, I'd still be happy to work with the customer. I just don't feel it's fair to ask for £3,000 from me or £7,000, which they're now asking for. Let me know your thoughts, though. You know, am I being unfair to say to the customer after 7 months, 5,000, 6,000 miles, whatever it was, that I would look at the fault and repair it for them if they could get the car to me? That's where I've drawn the line in the sand. You know, I'm not saying I won't look at it and I won't fix it, and just saying you just got to get it. You know, you're outside of your warranty. You're outside of 6 months of Consumer Rights Act, you know, covering this sort of thing even. You know, we're 7 months down the line. You've had an awful lot of driving out of this car. If you can get it to me, I will probably fix it for you. But if you're not willing to do that, then, you know, why should I? Why should I come and fetch it from you and then pay to repair it when, you know, you have to expect if you're buying a 15-year-old premium car on very high mileage that you are going to have some high running costs. You know, I can't be held responsible for it forever. It just doesn't work that way, and that's not fair in my opinion. But let me know what you think. Am I completely, you know, being completely unfair? I'd be very interested to hear. I'm sure there are going to be opinions either way, and we'll find out what the judge's opinion is in a matter of a month or two, I imagine. And I guess that's the one that really matters. So if you made it this far and you're not a subscriber, now's the time to subscribe. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button so that when it comes out in about a couple of months' time, I'll tell you that I've got to buy back a knackered old 2007 Q7 on absolute moon miles for way over the odds and more than I even sold it for retail in the first place. You'll be the first to know about it. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you give it a like. It really helps out the channel. And other than that, I will see you next time.